What would you do if the people you trusted most were the ones poisoning the very system they swore to protect? This is the story of Detective Brian Keller, a seasoned officer who once believed the badge meant honor, until he found out just how deeply the rot ran within his department. A story of betrayal, buried truths, and one man's search for redemption inside a force corrupted from the top down. Let's go back to the beginning. Detective Brian Keller had served 18 years with the Rivergate Police Department, a mid-sized force in a quiet American city. Known for his calm demeanor and a high case clearance rate, he was respected, even admired, but something had always gnawed him. Unsolved cases that were shelved too quickly, evidence that disappeared, or victims who were quietly ignored. At first, he chalked it up to human error, a stretched force, bureaucracy. That was until a routine burglary call changed everything. Keller wanted justice not just for himself, but for a city that deserved better. He wanted to believe that the system could fix itself, that the good guys just needed to try harder. But most of all, he wanted peace. Peace from the growing suspicion that he'd been part of something dirty for nearly 2 decades and never knew it. So, he followed his instincts, dug a little deeper, checked the logs, revisited witness statements. Nothing major, just connecting dots. And what he found, it didn't just rattle him, it shattered him. The burglary victim had surveillance footage, a clear image of a badge a cop entering before the break-in. Keller traced the ID to a patrol officer named Vince Ortega, someone with a long, spotless record. But when Keller went to pull Ortega's activity log, the record was gone, erased. And not subtly. When he raised the issue with Internal Affairs, they warned him in veiled terms to let it go, that not all houses are safe to knock on. Keller didn't let it go. He pushed harder, only to find himself reassigned, followed, and even threatened. Anonymous calls, a brick through his windshield, and finally, a sealed envelope on his doorstep, a folder of names, addresses, and bodies, each linked to unsolved cases Keller had once worked on. He realized then the corruption wasn't a few bad apples, it was the whole orchard. Keller had the choices: bury the evidence and survive, like many before him, or burn it all down. Knowing full well he'd likely go with it, he reached out to a journalist he once trusted, Elena Morris, a dogged local reporter fired 2 years earlier after uncovering financial misdealings tied to the mayor's office. Together, they built a case carefully, quietly. They gathered statements from other officers who had resigned in silence, tracked financial ties between the department and private contractors, and unearthed years of buried complaints, forced disappearances, and ghost investigations. And then they did something no one expected. They went live, with names, with files, with video. They forced the story into the national spotlight. The fallout was immediate. 5 senior officers were indicted. The police chief resigned. State investigators took over the department. And Keller, he was fired 2 days later for gross insubordination and breach of protocol. No pension, no ceremony, just a cardboard box and silence. But something unexpected happened. Citizens marched, protested, demanded accountability. And for the first time in years, Rivergate got it. New leadership, transparent oversight, real reform. Keller now lives in a cabin outside the city alone, mostly. Still haunted by what he couldn't save, but there's something new in his voice when he speaks to the small criminal justice classes he visits once a month. Hope, because sometimes redemption doesn't look like medals or awards. Sometimes it looks like truth, spoken loud enough that no one can ignore it. He lost his job, his reputation, and everything he built, but in doing so, he exposed a system built on silence and forced a city to open its eyes. This was the story of Detective Brian Keller, a man who refused to look away even when the cost was everything.